TNCRadio.live, your commercial driver navigation station.
Good afternoon. This is TNCRadio.live, and this is the Truckers Network Radio Show with your host, Shelley Johnson.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. Yes, this is the Truckers Network Radio Show on TNCRadio.live, where we offer the sports, weather, traffic, news, and entertainment the commercial drivers want to hear. Speaking of entertainment, remember Flo and Kiss My Grits? Who didn't love Mel's Diner? There's a great book called Alice, Life Behind the Counter in Mel's Greasy Spoon that takes you behind the scenes of one of TV's most beloved sitcoms. Author Barry Putt Jr. describes how Martin Scorsese's film Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore inspired the show about a single mom who puts her dreams on hold for a job at a Southwest diner. We have Barry Putt Jr. here with us today to talk about the show, what inspired it, and how everything evolved. Welcome, Barry. This is going to be so much fun.
Hi, Shelley. It's great to be here. Looking forward to talking to you.
Yes. Who couldn't love Alice, Vera, Flo, and Mel? Could you tell us about you and your book and what inspired you to write about it?
Sure. I'm a stage, screen, and audio drama writer, and also an author. And actually, I loved the show when I was young. I watched it in reruns, and a few years ago, I approached a publisher, Bear Manor Media, with a pitch to write the book, because I really loved the show and also the spin-off of the show and the feature film. And very quickly, which is not usually the case, they gave me a contract, and I had a year to write the book.
Wow.
And I was off and writing it. I did a couple different types of research, print research, interviewing the cast and crew, and then also personal observations. I watched all 202 episodes of Alice at least 3 times and took notes, and then combined that with additional research to create the episode logs, the trivia questions, and the note sections in the book.
So what have people said about the book? It's so very cool. You broke everything down, and those who love the show have got to love your book.
Yeah, I've had some really great response to it, especially from the core fan group for Alice. They have been really supportive, and they're a great group. Still watching the show today on streaming and on TV.
I don't think a lot of people realize that show was on for 9 seasons. That was a long time.
Yes, yeah, especially during the time when there were just a few networks.
Mm-hmm. What do you think made that show work?
But that's a great question, because when the show started off during the first season, they were really trying to find a solid grounding for the show. And it actually was only renewed for 4 episodes at a time at the start.
Wow.
Different producers and directors came in, and they added a little bit to the show. But it was ultimately not until the second season when they brought in some new producers that had been in the business for a while that the show really started to flourish. And once they took over, the show was in the top 15 most watched series for most of the 8 seasons that they produced the show.
So it was kind of an evolving concept from the beginning. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And when Madeline Davis and Bob Carroll Jr., those are the producers that I was talking about that came in for season 2, mm-hmm. They really worked with the actors to develop the characters. So there's a character, Vera. She's one of the waitresses, mm-hmm. and she was usually the brunt of the jokes during season 1, but the actress, Beth Howland, really wanted her character to have more dimension. So she talked to Madeline Davis and Bob Carroll Jr. About fleshing out her character. And during the course of that season 2 through season 9, her character really flourished. She became very engaging. She had different talents that came out. She got married, and ultimately at the end, started a family. So she really developed, and so did the character of Mel, who was played by Vic Tayback in both the feature film Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore and the TV series Alice. He was concerned that in the first season he was mostly just yelling at the waitresses, and he wanted to have more dimension to his character. So they opened his story up and gave him some more depth too. I think that those things are what resonate with the audience.
Would you say it was the era that people could kind of identify with the characters, or do you think that people still could identify with that group? Because their synergy was incredible, and you've got to admit the dynamics they had and how they developed their characters. People really liked it.
Yeah, I think it has a timeless quality, and at the time, it spoke to specific issues. Equal pay in work, that was definitely something that was important to the waitresses. Mm-hmm. And they weren't always paid fair. In fact, the character of Alice, unbeknownst to Linda Lavin, who played her, became kind of a figure, a spokesperson outside of the show for equality during that time.
What year did this show first start, for those who aren't familiar?
It started in 1976, and it ran until 1985.
Wow. And I think it appealed to many generations.
Yes. Even at the time, definitely. Mm-hmm. And I think even today, I've talked to people where they said that their parents watched it and they watch it now. So yeah, it has, an appeal to many generations, just like you had mentioned.
Now, you said that this was kind of a concept in progress from the first season. What inspired the producers to do a spinoff? Martin Scorsese's film came first. Am I correct? Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore?
Yes, that's correct. The film came first. Mm-hmm. And I think what inspired it essentially was the fact that Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore won a couple of Oscars. And the networks, took note of that. So they had the writer of the film, Robert Getchell, they brought him in to do a pilot, a TV pilot, to turn it into a sitcom. And the sitcom is based off of maybe the last 25% of the actual film, which takes place, in the film, it takes place in Mel and Ruby's cafe, which is in Tucson, Arizona. But in the sitcom, it takes place in Phoenix, Arizona, in Mel's diner.
Okay. Now, is this based on a real diner?
Actually, it is. The TV sitcom is based on a real diner, which is currently called Mel's Diner. But back in the first season of the TV series, the producers went to Phoenix, Arizona, looking for a diner that they could use in the opening credits. And they found a diner called Chris's Diner that had been around probably for about 25 years at that time. They approached the owner about changing just the sign outside to read Mel's Diner so that they could shoot it to include in the series. And that's really what led it to become called Mel's Diner. And they never, they kept the name. And beginning in season 2 of the series, that's when the actual footage of the sign of Mel's Diner became started to be available in the opening credits. And let me see. Also, 2 times later in the series, they took the sign Mel's Diner and used it, a replica of it. I think usually it was on the roof of the diner in the TV series, but in reality, the real diner, the sign is in the parking lot.
That had to have helped their business.
It did. There, even today, it's changed owners since then, but it's still open. And they serve breakfast and lunch. I believe they're open till 3:00 every day. So if you happen to be in the Phoenix area, just go to 1747 Grand Avenue. That's where the diner is located. They have in their menus, they have several different color pictures of the cast throughout the menu, and they have a memorabilia section just dedicated to the Alice TV series, including a script and some other items there as well.
That is so very cool. Well, Barry, we're going to be talking about some more details of your book, because I know there are a ton here, and you've got all kinds of trivia you can tell us, and I'd love to know what you discovered. We're talking with Barry Putt Jr. He's written Alice, Life Behind the Counter, and Mel's Greasy Spoon. This is going to be a bunch of fun. Definitely stay tuned here on Truckers Network Radio Show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson here with Tom Kelly.
This blog on TNCRadio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. 5 ways to handle sickness on the road as a truck driver. Being sick on the road is one of the worst situations a truck driver could be in. As if being sick isn't bad enough, sickness on the road is 10 times worse. If you're sick at work, you can simply go home for the day and rest. This isn't the case for truck drivers. Truck drivers are hundreds and sometimes thousands of miles from their home. When a truck driver gets sick, it affects their ability to deliver their load on time. They also lose money while trying to recover. As a trucker, it's important to know how to handle sickness on the road. Here are 5 tips for you. Stay hydrated. Drinking water and electrolytes have a ton of benefits while you're sick. Water helps replace the fluids lost while loosening up mucus. Hot liquids also have benefits as well. The steam from hot liquids helps relieve congestion and soothe a sore throat. Stay clear of sugary drinks. They'll dehydrate you. Rest. Sometimes the best thing you can do while being sick is rest. Your health's more important than getting a load delivered on time. Plus, it can be dangerous to drive while you're sick. Take a day or 2 to rest and get better. Continuing to work while being sick will only drag out the healing time. Take medicine. If you start to feel sick, get medicine as soon as possible. Vitamin C supplements are great immune boosters. Also, avoid eating unhealthy, greasy foods. Eating properly keeps you healthy and boosts your immune system. If you're already sick, check to see which over-the-counter medicine would help the most. Talk to your dispatch. Let dispatch know what's going on. If you're sick, you may not be able to perform your daily duties, or you may not be able to drive at all. Don't rush recovery time. Rushing recovery time can result in re-injuring yourself. Truck drivers know that if their truck's parked, then they're not making money. It's better to take a week off to recover than try to work when you're not ready and further injuring yourself. This blog on TNCRadio.live was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Claire Dunn, and you're listening to TNC Radio.live.
And this is the Truckers Network Radio Show. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly. That was a bit unexpected. The theme song from the TV show we're talking about. We're speaking with Barry Putt Jr., who wrote the book Alice, the Life Behind the Counter, and Mel's Greasy Spoon. Barry, I know you've got some interesting tidbits you can share with us. You said you had some more trivia about the real diner in Phoenix that inspired the show and the set on the show and all of that.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to mention that the real Mel's Diner is in Phoenix, Arizona, but there is a Mel's Diner chain in Florida and some other states. And I just wanted to point out that they're not actually related to the diner in Phoenix. So there really is just one unique diner that is the official Mel's Diner associated with the show.
So if you're a fan, you need to go to Phoenix. Okay,
yes.
That's good to know. Yeah, because when I was researching some of it before we for this interview, I saw a diner somewhere, I think in San Francisco or in the Bay Area.
Yes,
and I think they call it Mel's Diner or something like that. So
they do, and it's actually part of a chain.
Okay.
but not related.
Okay. So when you were researching the book, what interesting facts did you find out about? Were there any interesting inside stories about the cast and things that our listeners would be curious about?
Let's see. Well, I can tell you what they did after the series.
Okay.
So Linda Lavin, who played the main character, Alice Hyatt, she continued to be in TV, film, and stage productions. And even today, she does concerts throughout the U.S. And last year, her second album called Love Notes was released.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know she was a singer.
Yes, she was a singer. Her character was a singer on the show, and even in the feature film. So they tried on the show. They tried to bring in musical, sometimes musical episodes, or just aspects, because she was Alice was an aspiring singer, and she never gave up that dream. Throughout the whole series. So. It was great to have, a singer as playing the character. And then, so there's Vic Tayback, who played Mel. He continued to act in TV roles until his death in 1990, which is about 5 years after the show went off the air. And Alice was the most consistent acting job that he had, the part that he really is known for in his career.
I imagine he was a bit typecast after that. That can happen.
Yes, and they tried to find, there was a couple possibilities for leading roles in TV series after that, but I don't believe that worked out. But he was featured in several different shows, including The Love Boat and other shows of that time.
But, for us out there who are science fiction nerds, that's what he's not best known for, of course. What he's best known for is his wonderful portrayal on Star Trek about 10 years before that show, when he was he played a gangster on Star Trek, and it was wonderful.
Okay. Wow, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a lot of that's great for the sci-fi fans.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know he usually played kind of rugged characters. I know he was in the Partridge Family, and he kind of played a gruffer character on that show in a couple of episodes as well. There was Philip McCoon, who was Tommy. Now, Tommy is Alice's son. And he continued to act for a few years and did some films. Then he moved to Texas, where he emceed on a morning radio show for many years.
Interesting.
And Polly Holliday, who played Flo, she continued, acting in films and TV, including Gremlins, which was a really popular movie in the mid '80s, and the TV sitcom Private Benjamin. She also narrated a few audiobooks. And then I think about 12 years ago, she retired from acting.
Okay.
And we have Celia Weston, who played Jolene, which was one of the waitresses a little bit later in the series. She's continued to act in films and TV ever since. And her most recent film was last year, and it was called The Secret Dare to Dream.
I've heard the title.
So that's some of the things that some of the lead actors did since the show was left the air. So
did they all get along really well? I mean, obviously they had some definite synergy there. It just all worked.
Yes, through my research, I've heard that they've really worked very well together. Now, sometimes one of the waitresses or one of the actors moved on. Polly Holliday, she actually got her own show called Flo, which was a spinoff of Alice, and she moved on to do that show. So and Flo was developed during the first season of Alice, but because the producers were trying to build an audience for Alice, they held up the release of the series Flow until I believe it was season 4 in Alice. And then it spun off. And the premise of Flow is that Flo moves back to Cowtown, Texas, buys a tavern, which she renames Flo's Yellow Rose, and she opens it and runs it. And it's about her journey and experience with the community there.
How well did that do as a series, as a spinoff?
Well, it came in, the first season was 6 episodes, and it was a mid-season replacement, and it was the top-rated new show. And then the second season, it did well, but it ended after the second season.
Interesting. Of course, it depends on what they're competing against at the time, too.
Definitely. And Vic Tayback as Mel came to Flow for one episode on vacation, which was kind of a fun episode, especially for fans of Alice, to see him come on to Flow's show.
Sure, it would be. So what are the most interesting things you found when you were researching the book?
Well, one thing that I think is really interesting is Robert Getchell. He is the writer of Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. He was actually a college English professor who, from the Midwest, he moved to California to work at a university teaching English, and he became dissatisfied with what he saw on TV. So he decided that he was going to write a feature screenplay that he thought would be more engaging that was on TV. It was his first screenplay, and he got it produced just a few years later, which was, really wonderful. He went on to write screenplays for adaptations and biopics, including Mommy Dearest, about the life of Joan Crawford, Sweet Dreams, about the life of Patsy Cline, and then The Client, which was based upon the novel of the same name by John Grisham. And that was his last film that he did. And then he returned. He moved back to the Midwest, and for the rest of his career, he resumed his teaching position as an English professor.
I bet he had a much bigger class at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, my goodness. So, I mean, people who write screenplays, it can take them a long time to land any kind of movie. It sounds like he did it right at the very beginning. That's amazing.
Yeah, he was very fortunate. Because you can write scripts and they may not ever become produced, or may just be kind of like a calling card for something else. So he was very fortunate. And
what did he find that was not engaging enough? Did you delve into that further as to? I mean, he was right on, because obviously it was a major hit, the movie, and then of course the TV show.
I think it was the way that women were portrayed.
Okay.
That's what he latched onto. And that was the focus of Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. And it was actually what brought Ellen Burstyn to select the script. So how she became involved in the feature film was that she had just finished up working on The Exorcist. And Warner Brothers, the company that was producing it, and also her agent were sending her screenplays to consider. And she found the film, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. She was really drawn to the fact that women there were portrayed as individuals and masters of their own destinies. She then reached out to some colleagues that she knew, including Francis Ford Coppola, who suggested Martin Scorsese as a director. And Scorsese read the script and then met with Ellen Burstyn. And he mentioned that he was basically known for his male-focused films at that point, but he told her that he was eager to do a film from a female point of view, and that's what convinced Ellen Burstyn to select him as a director.
Fascinating. And the rest, they say, is history. We're speaking with Barry Putt Jr. He wrote the book, Alice, Life Behind the Counter and Mel's Greasy Spoon. I'm thoroughly enjoying this because there's More details, I'm sure Barry's got to tell us. Definitely stay tuned here on the Truckers Network radio show. You're listening to TNCRadio.live.
This blog is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. Truckers Against Trafficking can help fight modern-day slavery. Human trafficking is a real and frightening issue in the United States. It's a crime that forcefully exploits women, men, and children. Human trafficking involves transporting a person into a situation of exploitation, which can include forced labor, marriage, or prostitution. The term exploitation in this sense is commonly referred to as modern slavery. At this time, it's estimated that there are 20 to 40 million human trafficking victims internationally. According to the ACLU, the United States Department of State estimates that 14 to 17,000 people are trafficked into the United States each year. Truckers Against Trafficking exists to educate, equip, empower, and mobilize members of the trucking, bus, and energy industries to combat human trafficking. Truckers Against Trafficking goals: saturate trucking and related industries with TAT materials. Partner with law enforcement and government agencies to facilitate the investigation of human trafficking. Marshal the resources of partners to combat this crime. The Truckers Network proudly sponsors Truckers Against Trafficking and their efforts to fight against this heinous crime that's affecting hundreds of thousands of Americans each year. How truckers can help. Training video. Watch Truckers Against Trafficking's free training video and take the short quiz through their online portal. This will register you as an official TAT-trained, TAT-certified driver. Know the red flags. Download the Truckers Against Trafficking app and request a wallet card and window decal at tat.truckers@gmail.com. Share. Share Truckers Against Trafficking's training with others in person and through social media. How trucking companies, schools can help. Training video. Share Truckers Against Trafficking's free training video with your drivers. Request a digital file of your video or physical DVD from tat.truckers@gmail.com. Know the red flags. Tell your drivers to download the Truckers Against Trafficking app and or request wallet cards for your drivers from tat.truckers@gmail.com. Register. Register your company as trained to reflect your impact in the fight against trafficking and encourage others to do the same. This info blog was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
This is a very special shout out to all our truckers. From Starcom Racing's Quinn Hoff on TNCRadio.live.
I just wanted to give a special shout out to all the truckers out there listening. There's a lot of storms out there. Just stay safe, and I appreciate everything they do for our country. Like I said, that I don't know if you guys heard earlier, without trucks, America stops moving, and I know that well myself, coming from a family trucking business. And obviously, everyone needs truck drivers. So if you need a truck driving position, be sure to check out Half Transfer. And I appreciate you.
This is the Truckers Network radio show. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly. We're speaking with Barry Putt Jr., who wrote the book Alice, Life Behind the Counter in Mel's Greasy Spoon. It's got a lot of really cool facts and information about a show that really captivated the American audience for about 9 years. Barry, who came up with the phrase, "kiss my grits"?
Well, actually, the series writers came up with that phrase early in season 1. And Polly Holliday, who played Flo, she was actually, from the South, from Alabama. She questioned the phrase when she first saw it in the script because it really wasn't a phrase that was used in the South. But audience wound up loving it, and it quickly became her catchphrase on the series.
Kiss my grits!
That was great. I mean, she delivered the line. It was classic. And a lot of people started using that line. It was like, "kiss my grits."
Yeah. And an interesting kind of side note is that when the spinoff series Flo came about, she rarely used it on that show, just a couple of times. So it was really something that was, associated with the TV series Alice and her character, on that show.
But it made her character. I mean, she was feisty. People like that,
Yes.
And it was. It was a polite way for her to, tell somebody off.
Right. Right.
Which the censors at the time would have appreciated.
Right. They had a lot of catchphrases on that show that I think definitely for viewers of the show are memorable. Another one of Flo's would be "When Donkeys Fly," and Mel would say "Stow it,"
and people could read between the lines on any of those phrases,
right?
Which I think gave it character. Now, you mentioned that there are actually some trucking themes that were on the TV show too.
Yes, actually, from the feature film. It started in the feature film. Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. Alice was married to a trucker named Don, and unfortunately, he was killed on the job. But that event sparked Alice's journey as a single mother to venture out west, and it prompted her to move to Arizona, where she started to work at Mel and Ruby's Cafe in the film. And actually, it was the same backstory that was relevant in the TV series as well. Something else truck related is that Polly Holiday, who played Flo, her father was a trucker, and he used to take her out on the road when she was growing up once a week. And they dine at various truck stops and get to meet the people that work there and that were coming through. And she actually used that experience to help create the character of Flo in the TV series Alice, and then later in the series Flo as well.
Do you know offhand if they ever actually consulted with truckers when they were coming up with anything for the scripts and any of the episodes?
I didn't come across anything like that. I do know that they used a lot of what Polly Holiday, a lot of her, biography growing up in the character of Flo. They definitely did that. And they did have patrons that were truckers. They had a bread delivery truck service that came in from time to time. There were some movers that regularly ate at Mel's Diner. Mm-hmm. And there were two actually really great episodes that featured trucks. The first one was in season 2, and it was called A Semi-Merry Christmas. It was written by the producers that I had mentioned earlier, Madeline Davis and Bob Carroll Jr. It was what was called their audition script. So the network wanted to make sure that they would be a good fit for the show. So they had to write this, script, and it dealt with Mel driving the waitresses and Alice's son Tommy out to Colorado on Christmas Eve so that they could have a white Christmas. But unfortunately, they got stuck in the snow on a rural highway, and they needed the help of truckers. They called on the CB, at that time to get truckers to help bail them out of the snow. And then the other episode was in season 4, and it was called Good Buddy Flo. And in that episode, Flo had a boyfriend who was a trucker, and she was trying to impress him, and she said that she knew how to drive a semi. So when he went off, she got in his truck and tried to drive it. However, she couldn't figure out how to stop the truck, and she wound up crashing into the front of the diner.
Yeah. So she would make an impression that way.
Yeah, definitely. And let's see. Polly Holiday actually practiced driving a semi on the studio lot before the shoot, but they couldn't practice that actual crash. It was like a one-time only, and they had to do it right in front of the studio audience when they taped it.
Oh, okay. So did they actually have her driving the truck, or was it somebody else that they...
They did. They had the 3 waitresses at the time, Flo, Vera, and Alice. They were all in the driver's seat when the truck crashed through the front of the diner.
Were they a bit worried, or did you find out any information on that?
Actually, I did. Linda Lavin was a little concerned about doing that, and but because they couldn't really test it. It could only be really, spoken about in theory. But ultimately, she understood how it was going to work, and she went ahead and she did that part. But so there was some reservation, but kind of understandably.
I would have reservations, no doubt about that. Now, I understand there's a connection between the show and Lucille Ball.
Yes, it's what I call the Lucy connection. I've kind of hinted at it, but I'll tell you directly right now. So I had mentioned earlier that in season 2, they brought Bob Carroll Jr. and Madeline Davis in to be the producers. So they actually were script writers. They had worked with Lucille Ball on her first radio series, My Favorite Husband, back in the late 40s. They also wrote for I Love Lucy, The Lucy Show, Here's Lucy, and then Lucille Ball's last series, Life with Lucy, which premiered after the TV series Alice ended. So they were they came to the show with a great deal of success in comedy writing. They also brought Mark Daniels. Mark Daniels was a director for I Love Lucy, and I believe he directed about half of the episodes of I Love Lucy. He was really known for making complicated scripts work very easily, and that's what they used him for on Alice as well. He came in and directed about 90 episodes of the 202 episodes.
Well, that certainly didn't hurt. He'd worked on a show that was top rated as comedy. The Lucy Show, wasn't that one of the first sitcoms? Really? At least some of the first.
I Love Lucy.
Yeah.
Yes, I Love Lucy. Mm-hmm. And it was actually an adaptation of My Favorite Husband, which was the radio. And the last major component of the Lucy connection is that Desi Arnaz had a guest appearance on Alice.
Oh, he played, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yes, for one episode. So that's the Lucy connection.
Okay. And we have a couple minutes here. Could you tell us about Mel's famous chili?
I would be glad to. So Mel was known for a lot of different things, but one thing specifically was his chili. People, really liked it, and he guarded the recipe because there were competing restaurants that were trying to compete for business.
Sure.
So he never revealed the recipe. However, if you listen closely to the episodes, you can piece together a full, legitimate recipe. And I've included that recipe in the book. I've also included, thanks. I've also included a second recipe that was given on a recipe card to any fan that would write into the show. And they're made with the base ingredients in both chilies are very different. So they'll have very different tastes. If you like chili, or if you're looking to try something new, I encourage you to check it out.
Yum. So foodies definitely want to buy your book too.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You spent some time researching and piecing together a recipe from all those episodes. My goodness.
It was fun though.
Oh, it would be. We're talking with Barry Putt Jr. He wrote the book Alice, Life Behind the Counter in Mel's Greasy Spoon. We're going to have more details coming up from Barry because there's some more interesting tidbits, and it's more than just Kiss My Grits. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. Stay tuned for more coming up.
This blog on TNCRadio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net for truck driving jobs for drivers under 21. So you just turned 18 and you're ready to find a job as a truck driver. But why is it so difficult? According to the United States federal law, a person must be 21 years old to drive a commercial vehicle in interstate commerce. Although you can obtain a CDL by the age of 18, you'll be limited to driving intrastate, and most trucking companies only hire drivers who are 21 years old or older. Also, insurance rates are much higher for trucking companies that employ drivers under the age of 21. But that doesn't mean there aren't truck driving jobs available before you turn 21. There are many jobs you can qualify for at just 18 years old. Although the majority of the truck driving jobs will be within your state lines, it's still a good idea to get your foot in the door and get a few years of experience before you turn 21. Under 21 Pilot Program. The FMCSA launched an Under 21 pilot program that helps Reserve and National Guard members ages 18, 19, and 20 explore civilian trucking careers. Commercial truck drivers are in high demand, and this program helps trucking companies hire disciplined and experienced drivers. For more information, visit www.fmcsa.gov/under21 military-drivers-info. Towing and recovery. Driving a tow truck is typically an intrastate job. While there's no age restriction, besides being 18 years old, some companies may still require you to be 21. Check with some of your local towing companies and ask what the age requirements are. Local delivery driver. Working as a local delivery driver is a great way to gain experience in your trucking career. You could start working for a local store or warehouse and deliver goods right to a customer's door. Here are a few places you can look for local delivery jobs: furniture stores, lumber yards, office supply stores. Dump truck driver. Driving a dump truck may not be your dream job, but it gets your foot in the door, and you can work close to home. Most local businesses will need dump truck drivers to move building materials, dirt, garbage, or other freight. Most truck driving jobs won't become available until you're 21, but you don't have to wait until then to start gaining experience. Getting a few years of experience on your resume before applying for big trucking companies will help during the hiring process. This blog on tncradio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
Enjoy the best in trucker-style music and comedy. Weeknights starting at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on tncradio.live. This is the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly. We're talking with Barry Putt Jr. He's written the book, Alice, Life Behind the Counter in Mel's Greasy Spoon. Barry, could you tell us a little bit about the theme song for the show? Because that was a hit all in and of itself.
No, definitely. So it was written by a husband and wife team that have written for a lot of different musicians, including, I think most recently they wrote for Barbra Streisand's most recent album. So they've done pop music and they've done theme songs. And at that time, every season, Linda Lavin would be brought in to redo the song. So they came up, the first season had specific lyrics, and then they rewrote the lyrics for, I believe it was in season 2. And then she would come in and do kind of some jazz or scat singing as opposed to the lyrics. So every season, there's a different version of it.
Which adds some variety. That was clever on their part, I think.
Yeah, and it kind of keeps it fresh and new.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, you mentioned the Alice trilogy. What is that?
Well, that is the feature film, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, okay. And the TV series Alice, which was a spinoff, and then the spinoff of Alice, which is Flow.
Okay. Tom, you said you had some questions for Barry?
Well, you were mentioning while we were on break there that Vic Tayback had some health issues during the running of the show, and they used some of that, I guess, into the show. Tell us a little bit more about that. I was a big Vic Tayback fan, so I'm curious as to what kind of issues he had.
Well, I spoke to his son, and he told me that after he had some back problems throughout his whole life, and but he was a really dedicated to his work. So at one point, it became really difficult for him to stand, and they brought a hospital bed in, and they reblocked a whole episode so that he could just lean on different counters and move as little as possible. So that's one thing that happened. And then a little later in the show, he had to, the show was briefly on a pause because he was in the hospital. He had a triple bypass surgery. And,
Wow.
but I think he was back on the show like 2 weeks after the surgery.
And back then that was
Amazing.
huge. I mean, that was not a surgery that was as regularly done as it is today. So, wow.
But he still died at a young age. He was only 60 when he died, and but he was always a heavier guy too.
Yeah, and it was related to those issues.
Yeah.
But I had also heard that he sometimes he practiced his lines very all the time, but sometimes would have trouble remembering lines, so he would write them on different things on the set, just in case, just as a prompting, just in case he needed it, because it was done. Even though it was taped, it was done before a live audience, and they tried to do as few takes as possible.
Sure.
To keep it fresh, for the audience. Just another small tidbit. One of the writers told me that there were no laugh tracks used. The laughing that you hear is, almost 100% actually the studio audience laughing at the show.
Yeah. Because, back then there was a big debate about laugh tracks versus live audience stuff, and which was better and when to use which and all that kind of stuff. So I wasn't sure, if this was one of those shows, because you listen and it sounds genuine, but, they were pretty good at faking it back then too.
Sure.
Right. I went actually to a taping of a sitcom where a couple years ago where definitely it was augmented with laughter, not our laughter. Okay. So yeah, it's changed. But on Alice, it was it was the real thing.
Well, and don't they have a sign that goes up that says "laugh" for the audience or not? I think I'd heard that, but
I know they have applause.
Okay.
They might have one for laugh, but I didn't hear that in terms of, it wasn't connected with Alice from any of the research that I did.
Yeah, I'm not sure everybody can just laugh on command. It's not something that's normally done,
right?
Especially if it's not funny, Mm-hmm. So what did you like the most about researching all of this, Barry?
I really love talking to the actors and the writers connected to the show. That was, because I'm also a fan of the show. It was really, great to talk to these people and get a behind the scenes look at, how the show was developed. And I talked with some people, some actors from the series Flow, as well as several from the series Alice.
I bet they love reminiscing.
Yeah, I mean, everyone that I talked to had, really, wonderful things to say. I reached out to everyone that I was able to find contact information for, which was, really everyone. And I spoke to as many people as I was able to connect with.
Well, and you only had a year to turn this around, and you had to go through all of the episodes, and you were probably working darn near 24/7 to get this all accomplished.
Yeah, there was a lot of different facets to writing the book, so it was my main focus at the time.
But when you enjoy what you're doing, it's just inspirational. And I imagine that as you delved more into different things, maybe it changed some of the direction you were going to take the book too.
Well, that is very true. I didn't really think of it until just this moment, but my original concept for the book was to have the series Alice, and then to have the feature film Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. And I didn't intend, I'm not sure exactly why, but when I pitched the book to the publisher, I didn't intend including the series Flow. But about midway through my work on the book, I said, I really need to include a Flow. I mean, it's a part of, it's a part of this Alice world. So definitely, to your point, it definitely evolved as I was working on it.
Absolutely. So where do people find your book, Alice, Life Behind the Counter in Mel's Greasy Spoon? If not for the reading, which you've got trivia questions, you've got all kinds of interesting stuff, the chili recipes.
It's available at all major bookstores in hardcover, softcover, and in digital. And if anyone is interested in a signed copy, they're welcome to reach out to me through my website at barrymputjr.com.
Excellent. I think that this is a fun book, and it's going to inspire a lot of people maybe to go watch the show again, maybe online, and start a whole resurgence in Mel's Diner and kiss my grits. I love that phrase. I can start saying it, and it's in contemporary again.
Yes.
Well, I really appreciate it, Barry. How about you tell everybody again where they can find your book, just in case they didn't have a chance to write it down?
Oh, certainly. Well, it's at all major bookstores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and more. And you can also, if you're interested in a signed copy, please email me at my website, barrymputjr.com, and I'll get back to you.
And what is your website? What is the name of your website?
It's my name, barrymputjr.com.
Okay.
Join the meeting.
And that's Barry, BarryMPuttJR.com, correct?
That's correct. Yes. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I have had a lot of fun. This has been cool because it brings back some memories. It was a great series. And there are a lot of drivers out there that I'm sure really enjoyed watching Vera, Mel, Flo, and Alice, all the different characters that were in that diner, and all the dynamics and the real life portrayal of things going on in a diner. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show. I'm Shelley Johnson here with Tom Kelly. We've been talking with Barry Putt Jr., who wrote the book Alice, Life Behind the Counter in Mel's Greasy Spoon. Definitely check out that book. It's well worth the read. Stay tuned on tncradio.live. We got the Evening Surge coming up.
Thanks so much for listening to this podcast. For more information regarding our podcast, reuse, copyrights, etc., please visit our website, www.tncradio.live.